In this video, I'll show you how to track down Old Testament quotes and allusions in the book of Acts, then run an advanced search on Old Testament quotes spoken by Peter. In Acts chapter 2, Peter used the Old Testament scriptures to explain the coming of the Holy Spirit. This text proves that God is fulfilling promises declared by his prophets. From this point forward, Old Testament quotes will play an important role in the speeches and decisions of the apostles. With Logos, we can find Old Testament quotes in the book of Acts and determine the speaker, then find the same information on Old Testament allusions. First, open up a new passage guide report and input Acts chapter 2. When the report generates, scroll down to the literary typing section. Here you'll notice that a good portion of this chapter is made up of Old Testament quotations. With Logos, we can search this specific literary type using a Bible search. To do this, open up a new Bible search, then enter the search command that you see on my screen. You'll notice that I'm running a section search on the literary type Old Testament quotations. Before running your search, adjust your reference range to just the book of Acts, then run the search. And almost immediately, Logos returns 40 hits for this literary type search. From beginning to end, major figures in the book of Acts quote the Old Testament, and in most cases, these quotations are cited to explain the unfolding of God's salvific plan. Like in Acts 15:16 through 18, here James quotes the Old Testament to explain the rebuilding of David's tent and the unfolding of God's kingdom, which now includes Gentiles. To go one step further, I want to see how many times Peter quotes the Old Testament in the book of Acts. To do this, go back to the search bar and input the speaker label command for the person Peter, making sure to enclose this new command with curly brackets. Then separate the two commands with the search operator within. Stepping back for a moment, with this search, I'm telling Logos to locate every verse where Peter is the speaker and is quoting the Old Testament. When I run the search, Logos displays hits from the first few chapters of this book. Again, Acts chapter 2 contains the highest concentration of Old Testament quotes spoken by Peter. But what if I wanted to find allusions and quotations in the book of Acts? While Old Testament quotes are direct citations in the New Testament from the Old Testament, allusions are more subtle, but just as important. In some cases, a speaker or author will allude to an Old Testament passage using shared language or shared structure. Like in Acts 4:27, here the persecuted disciples lifted up their voices and prayed to God. In this verse, they refer to Jesus as God's appointed holy servant. This designation is a clear allusion to Isaiah 61:1, a passage that describes the work of the servant of the Lord. Although this is not a direct quotation, the connection is clear. To find and search other allusions, open up a new passage guide, and this time run the report for the entire book of Acts. When the report generates, scroll down and expand the section called Parallel Passages. Here, Logos provides us with a list of cross-references, parallel text, and allusions noted in our Harmony resources. You'll notice that Logos lists references from 3 Harmony resources. The first of these is a Harmony of the Gospels and Acts, which lists parallel passages found in these New Testament texts. But for this lesson, I want us to focus on the latter 2 texts. 2 significant Harmony resources include Old Testament quotations and allusions to the New Testament and Old Testament quotes in the New Testament. These resources mark the connection between the New Testament and the Old Testament on both the quotation level and the allusion level. The list of Old Testament texts points forward to the New Testament, while the list of New Testament texts points backwards. So no matter where you're reading, you can see these valuable cross-references. While we have before us an extensive list of Old Testament quotes and allusions in the book of Acts, I'm not able to search these texts and mine specific information. To create a searchable list of text, right-click the section heading and choose to Save as Passage List. This action generates a new list of biblical texts created from our cross-references in our Harmony resources. You'll notice that the first section of passages comes from a Harmony of the Gospels, and we can quickly remove these texts from our list by hovering over the passage and clicking the small Delete button. Once I've deleted these texts, I'm left with a list of Old Testament quotations and allusions in the book of Acts. To search this list, open up a new Bible search and adjust your reference range to the passage list you just created. Now input the search command speaker, person Peter, enclosed in angle brackets and curly brackets. Then run your search. With this search, Logos combed through the list of quotations and allusions and found every occurrence where Peter is the speaker. Whereas our first search surfaced results based on Old Testament quotes, with this search we broadened our scope and found allusions to the Old Testament as well. Now, I can use my passage guide on Acts alongside my search results and pinpoint quotes and allusions spoken by Peter, then see what text he's referencing. For example, in Acts chapter 10, verse 34, Peter declared that God shows no partiality, a clear allusion back to Deuteronomy 10:17. So if you want to perform an extensive investigation on the use of the Old Testament in Acts, Logos gives you this ability. You can search literary types or passage lists built from your Harmony resources. To get started using Logos, click Get Logos 6.